Okay, I want to talk a bit about comprehension, which is the deeper understanding of something. It might be reading comprehension, it might be listening comprehension. It is the ability to know what is going on through communication of some sort. In early childhood, you learn spoken and heard comprehension. You know what someone is saying, and then you're able to respond back in a way that relates to that thing. You need to comprehend what the other person is saying, and you also need to know what words to say in order for that interaction to make sense. Pretty much everyone knows about this concept, or at least they should. Like, I remember back in high school doing reading comprehension, where you would read a page of text and then answer questions about what that text was saying. And it always seemed very odd to me that even students in high school would be needing to practice this. But as an adult, seeing the way that people talk past each other and don't comprehend what the other is saying, maybe we need more college courses about it. Because clearly, being able to have a conversation with someone doesn't mean you're on the same page. Just because you can read something doesn't mean you understand it. We need better comprehension from the bedrock of communication, all the way up through all the different political issues, social issues, everyone very eager to talk, not very eager to listen, and it doesn't matter anyway because no one understands what the other's saying. The sheer basics of communicating with another person, the words you use, the terms. Everyone wants to talk, everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to be the loudest voice in any conversation to win over people and make sure that their opinion is the one that becomes the norm, that everyone agrees with. And yet, what they're saying and what's being heard are often not the same thing. So let's get nerdy and go back to basics so we can actually comprehend just how stupid so many people are being. One of the biggest things that is keeping people from actually talking to each other and coming to an understanding is the difference between definitions and connotations. Definitions are the neutral and to an extent objective meanings of words. The entire point of definitions is clarification, unification, and specification. You can't have a conversation with another person about cats jumping on your face if you and that other person have different definitions of cats jumping, faces, or separate understandings of beings impacting each other. Nothing would make sense. You would have no idea what the other was saying. Definitions are the basis of language itself, different meanings ascribed to different words, so everyone is on the same page. From the most basic level to the most complex. Connotations are the subjective meanings that people associate with words, independent of what the actual definitions are. The point is emotional expression, deeper nuance, and a shared cultural aspect of everyone having similar associations so that it becomes shorthand for something. So that when you say a certain word, it carries with it a whole bunch of meaning that isn't part of the actual definition. If you have a bad experience with something, you are going to have a completely different connotation of that thing than someone who has a neutral or good experience with it. If you love cats and you think them jumping on your face is cute, you are going to enter that conversation entirely differently than someone who hates cats because they were almost suffocated by one when they were a baby. Connotations are different emotional and intellectual meanings assigned to the same terms. They are opinions people hold about those definitions, just overlaid on top of them. And they hold a lot of meaning. They hold a lot of sway over people because of this. So people cling to their connotations in a way that they don't to definitions, because connotations are way more emotional. And what is happening in our modern world of fractured communities and every group having entirely different experiences from each other and no one being able to agree on anything is that everyone is using personal, subjective connotations for things, and everyone is talking past each other. Connotations bring a heightened human experience to communication. They hold a lot of power, but they also make things very messy and difficult. And if you need an example, I dare you to say feminism or fascism in mixed company and see how many communication problems arise. Because obviously, Having different connotations for the same word automatically places people on a different page from the start. Anything they talk about, any ideas they're trying to get across, any impressions they're trying to create, they are going to be at odds automatically with everything they say. They are so much more likely to misunderstand each other and therefore get into arguments. They are so much more likely to have entirely different perspectives on things that they keep each other from understanding the other. And thinking of the opposite, when you find someone who uses language in the same way you do, or at least a similar way, I cannot describe how much easier communication becomes. That is one of the factors for the idea of kindred spirits, people who are just always on the same page, where you have someone that you can have intimate conversations with and you actually feel understood, where whatever you are saying, they are getting it and they can understand it on a deeper level than most other people would. And a lot of people have never found someone like that. It is special when that comes along. They don't know what it's like. They don't know why communication is so hard with so many people and other people just aren't getting them, not understanding them. So if you do find someone like that, it's significant, it's special. And if you've never had that, first off, you might not even think it's possible. But if you've never had that feeling, if you've never heard it from someone else, you might not even realize that that's one of the issues. And if you've never had that yourself, if communication has always felt so difficult for you, then maybe a couple of tweaks here and there with how you're communicating or how you're intercepting what they're trying to say to you, that can go a long way. If you're having difficulty finding that, then pay special attention to this concept, because it might be that you need to make a few tweaks to how you're communicating or how you're taking things. If someone says something that just sets you off, they might not even mean what you think they mean. Misunderstandings everywhere. It's one of the main reasons so many people congregate around public figures or strong leaders, because if you find someone who speaks your language and is saying the things that you mean to say in a way that you just don't know how to communicate, that is cathartic. There is so much power behind that. It is a relief knowing you're not alone, and it's a relief that someone else is able to communicate what you're struggling to communicate. Even if a speaker is not a carbon copy of you, if they're saying things that deeply resonate with you, you are going to feel that intimate connection as if it were two-way communication. And then going a step deeper, how you approach language, how you define words, how you assign connotations on top of that, that will affect every conversation you have. Every written conversation, every spoken conversation, the way you speak about others and events and ideas, all of that comes down to how you are relating to the words you're using and how you're reacting to the way that other people are communicating with you. A lot of the things I talk about, a lot of my opinions, are not literal or not simply literal. I think a lot in terms of creative metaphor, of bigger ideas, and I'm very good at entertaining a thought without going all the way in, of following through with ideas without saying, yeah, that's the way it should be or the way that it has to be. Ideas expressed in different ways to gain clarity about a root idea. And I'm better at communicating with people who approach language in the same way. But just knowing that, knowing where I'm coming from and understanding how I try to communicate with people and how I try to wrap my mind around ideas, I'm always looking for the common denominator of what is going on beneath the surface. Because details of any circumstance can add depth and context and nuance, but they can also cloud and obfuscate. Because humans have infinite complexity, and sorting through which details matter and which ones don't and why from your personal subjective perspective, that takes a lot of time and effort. If you and I are going to get offended by different words, by all these different buzzwords and politicized and polarized terms because we're not seeing past the connotations, we're never going to have a real conversation. We're never going to be able to talk, much less sort out complex ideas. We will be talking past each other. And I see this happening all over society. Real life, online, political issues, social issues. Everyone is talking past each other, not understanding what the other says, and then getting mad about it. I hate misunderstandings. I consider them the biggest waste of time, which for me is a big thing because I don't consider a lot of time actually wasted, but misunderstandings, complete waste of time. But more than that, I hate people who are smart enough to understand this concept and yet they still engage with this same rage baity and disingenuous dialogue online where they're putting out ideas that they know are going to be misunderstood to people who they know are going to misunderstand them. And then they're just raking in the attention, raking in the clicks and attention and money they're getting out of this. This is a much bigger problem than a lot of people realize, because not only are they communicating poorly and drumming up all of this emotional turmoil in their audience or the people that they're talking to, but also because monkey see, monkey do, a lot of people are learning their communication patterns through this rage bait, through this incorrect, disingenuous, rife with misunderstandings type of dialogue. No one is learning how to talk to each other. And like I said before, they didn't know how in the first place. So people are getting worse at communication, worse at interactions. They already don't understand each other. And now you have people, entire groups, entire companies that are capitalizing on the emotional turmoil that comes from these misunderstandings. Entire genres of content online that are capitalizing on these misunderstandings and basically training their audience not only not how to think, but how to think badly. There are some big ideas here that I just wish more people would internalize. You cannot effectively interpret what someone is saying if you don't understand how that person uses language. And you can't effectively present your own ideas unless you know how the people you're talking to could misinterpret what you're saying. Misunderstandings, misinterpretations are everywhere when people are communicating clearly. We don't need to make this more complicated. If you don't know what the words mean that they're saying, you need to clarify. People you are on the same page with, they will still misinterpret things that you say. You will still get them wrong sometimes. And people make mistakes and they get upset about it. We should be trying to minimize this, not exacerbate it. But sure, exacerbating negative human emotions for religion, politics, money, what else is new? But just understanding this concept, this topic, can be an antidote to that. Because if you understand how people use definitions and connotations and where the mix-ups can occur, that means that you can communicate through that and actually come to an understanding. Couples who understand this and are really good at communication, whenever they fight, they trust each other enough to talk, to figure out what the problem is, and then to communicate to solve it and find solutions, not necessarily in doing anything different, but in letting each other know what they actually mean. The cure for bad communication is good communication. So start talking in a more open and honest and clarifying way. Some people are super pedantic. They want to focus on everyone using exact definitions and being overly precise with language. And I think that has its place. It is a good strategy if it works for you. But if you get two stubborn people, they will argue back and forth about the exact definitions of words for hours. Sometimes the better strategy is to go with the more subjective meaning of words and how you personally approach things, because that might be the only way someone else will agree to understand you. I'm actually having trouble communicating this idea I'm trying to get out. Very ironic. I can understand someone better if they use subjective connotations but can explain their underlying ideas well. I can understand that better than someone who uses exact, precise definitions but who can't explain themselves. This concept of definitions and connotations, they go hand in hand and they both have their purpose. But if everyone's using them in different ways, that is when you get the most confusion. They both have their place. They both have their uses within human language. They're both important. But if you don't understand what you're doing when you're using them, or how you're using them, or the role that they play in clarifying or heightening emotion, that is when the most confusion arises. And of course, I'm still susceptible to miscommunication. We all are. You're never going to have all people using any language in the exact same way. But I think what is happening right now with communication in real life and communication online and communication under every topic heading, every genre of everything out there, there is so much more miscommunication going on. And it just pisses me off that so many people seem to be doing it deliberately. So just assume all your communications are rife with misunderstandings and approach communication with maturity and curiosity for what the other person is actually saying. And stop watching rage bait where no one can seem to communicate properly because they can't, and that's the point. Stop giving them clicks, stop giving them money, and stop training yourself to act that way. But maybe you haven't understood a word I've said. Bye.